Hello, good evening. So today we have another session on chat with Chamindra with Thanuki Goonesinghe, um, lawyer by profession and a very erudite speaker, I would say, about technology law. And she is specialized in that and someone who shares a lot of knowledge and information related to that topic in all the socials and she has her own Technibus page where she shares the latest uh, technical trends and keywords. Even I learned a lot from what she's sharing each week. So without me giving more details, let's ask Tanuki to give a small introduction of yourself. Tanuki, yes, you can.
Hi everyone, I'm Thanuki, and I like to call myself an emerging technology lawyer. And I've been on a bit of an exciting journey exploring the intersections of law and technology now for about 2 years or so, um, focusing a lot globally, but also in Sri Lanka as well. And it's been quite a humbling experience, actually, just navigating this journey independently, because I don't have a lot of friends who are lawyers in technology. We just have,
Hmm.
I think, a handful of people who are actually focusing on this area here in Sri Lanka. So it's very difficult to meet everybody. And I think I'm just grateful for the opportunity to be a part of conversations like this and to be able to share some insights. I'm actually excited to dive into the conversation. So let's see how it
Great.
goes.
Great. Thank you, Tanu. That's a very nice introduction. So, just I want to know what inspired you to pursue a career in technology law, and focus on that as your focal point, as your guidance light in your career. So, just can you enlighten us on that part a bit?
Uh, yeah, I mean, so I've always been deeply interested in emerging technologies and kind of always wanted to immerse myself in that, learn about it, experience it as much as I can. But as I delved deeper into the topic, I began to see sort of the dual nature of technology, if you put it that way. And I became increasingly aware of the issues that society is grappling with when it comes to addressing the negative sides of technology. So I felt compelled to position myself at that intersection and look at some solutions for it and basically answers, because a lot of people are asking questions at this point in time. And it's not a just a local phenomenon, it's a global thing. Everybody wants to know what's going on and what are my rights in this space. And also, like, just this field of technology law, it helps me to kind of contribute a lot into innovative thinking and also kind of policy based thinking, uh, which not only helps to advance the legal industry which I am primarily based in, but also have a overall positive impact on society as a whole, and by extension of that, rights, digital rights. And of course, it's a fast paced area. There's something new every single day. So
Yeah.
I'm never bored, never bored.
Even today we got some news, right?
Yes, a lot of
Yeah.
flexibility. There's a lot of autonomy, but at the same time, there's a lot of room, a lot of space to make a lot of meaningful contributions if you really want to. So I'm just trying to do the best I can in this area. Yeah.
It's very inspiring because I found you are one of the few people who, talk about this very, very in deep conversations. You build this deep conversation regarding this topic, and a lot of people are still, it's an unknown territory for many, right? So it's really great that people like you advocating this and talking about this. So now, when you say law, it becomes a very vast area, and when it comes to technology law it could be even more bigger, right? So what are any the trends that you see, emerging trends that you see in this technology law landscape, and what are the emerging themes that that is happening? What your thoughts about that? What are the trends you can see?
So before,
Just elaborate from the past as well as you can see in the future as well. What sort of
okay,
trends that can come? Yeah.
okay. So before I answer that, I'm going to just park two insights. They're not my insights, but something that I have gathered from eloquent speakers in this subject area, um, more towards technology policy than law. But I'm going to just park it there so that when we're thinking about the emerging trends and our approaches to those, it really helps put things in perspective. So the first thing is that I don't know if you or our viewers have watched this Netflix documentary called The Social Dilemma. It became really popular a few years ago, and that was really based on what the impacts of social media is on people and how much of control social media has on the lives of people. It was a very interesting documentary. The same people who put that documentary together last year came up with and they did a session, somewhat like a TED talk, called the AI Dilemma, which talks about the
Okay.
second phase, second contact
Secondary, yeah.
with AI. And then in that, there was a lot of interesting things that were talked about. And one of the things that caught my attention was, and they said, when you invent a new technology, you uncover a new class of responsibilities. So when you're thinking about emerging trends, I want you to understand this, right? When you invent a new technology, you are creating a new class of responsibilities in the sense that up until recently, we didn't have a need to. Did you lose me by any chance? No, right?
No, no, no. I can hear you.
Okay.
It's
Right.
yeah.
So,
It's clear.
because uh, until recently, there was no requirement for us to have a right to be forgotten or
Hmm.
a right to erasure. We only need that right now because we have machines that no longer forget, right? And will keep our records for a very long time. So a new right has emerged in that sense, and therefore a new responsibility on the parts of people who or companies that process this data. Similarly, right to privacy. We humankind, we're communal, right? We are collective by nature. We talk to our neighbors. We discuss things loud over our fences. This is the normal nature of humanity. But we now value privacy a lot because we know that there are mass surveillance devices out there to collect our data. And I'm going to add to that. Then now you have neurotechnology devices that are used for brain surveillance, which have the ability to um, read our innermost private thoughts. Okay. So then that right to privacy goes a step further to things like right to mental privacy, right to our mental experiences, things like right to cognitive liberty. Okay. New ideas, new concepts of what our rights should be are emerging at such a fast pace because of these new technologies. So that was insight number one, and just some examples of things that emerge under that. And then another thing that I came across in that same video, the same guys, Tristan and Asa, they were talking about how everything humans do are essentially built on top of language. Okay, so like our laws, very language oriented. Okay, it's different from place to place, culture to culture. Our cultures in itself are a form of language.
Yeah.
Religion is language. Friendships and relationships are language. Enter generative large language models.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Here, we're trying to make it in a way that we can talk to our computers the way you and I will talk to each other, right? At this point, we are going to be creating some sort of tech that is able now to connect with us because language is connection. We are creating connection by technology. We're creating the ability to influence, to change, and essentially also on the negative sides to invade our lives and become a part of it, whether we like it or not. right? So that is another insight. So on that basis, I mean, I would think that we have a lot that we can discuss in terms of emerging trends. So I'm just kind of setting the foundation for that, right?
Yeah.
So we just dealt with very shortly about what it was like before. uh, Things were just not as interconnected, but now it is. Now, even if we want to unentangle ourselves from this web,
Yeah.
I think it is impossible. It would be right
Impossible.
to say it's impossible. Like
There's
tomorrow,
some kind of footprint is there of us
exactly,
somewhere in the technology,
somewhere.
I mean, in the internet space or anywhere, right?
Yeah.
We have that
Like for
small
example,
footprint at least.
if tomorrow the entire population of this world, of this planet, takes a stand and says we want to remove all digital connections and go back to our primitive state, that's impossible because we can't do that.
Mm.
So keeping that in mind, so that is your before, and then from the point where you have the internet coming in and all these other devices, I mean, we've lost track of everything that we have right now in terms of tech, right? And just also remember, technology is not just about digital devices. Tech is anything that is a solution for you to do something a little better, make it a little
Yeah.
more productive, make it a little more efficient. But whenever we talk about tech, people are just focused on the digital side of things because that
Yeah.
is giving us far more problems than the non digital stuff. And that, that is the only reason why this conversation is such a big conversation. Okay. Um,
And thing
because
is,
most,
people, even though they know that, they don't want to realize this. No, they don't. They fail to
yeah,
admit this. They know it's playing part, something like this kind of a part in their lives, but they
yeah,
don't like to admit this kind of things.
yes,
That's one
because
of the problems I see. Yeah.
I mean, it's like no one is going to care about a three wheeler, but they're going to be concerned about a self driving car because that is exciting. There's something weird about it. We like the weird. As human beings, are always intrigued by the things that we are um, not completely aware of. Um, and we're also very curious. We like to see what more we can do, what more we can do. And we are always constantly hunting for more power because I would talk about this more as we go along, but technology is essentially power now. And so that's where we're at. So, like, if you're looking at the emerging trends when it comes to tech, even things that have started out a few years ago, let's talk about like data privacy regulations. There was conversation on data privacy before 2018, but it really blew up in 2018 when the European Union came up with the GDPR, General Data Protection Regulations. And then this led to a ripple effect of all these other countries also, quickly grappling with the process and trying to come up with data protection regulations of their own. And then as a result of that, Sri Lanka also came up with their Personal Data Protection Act as well, right? So, but at the same time, I would still categorize this as an emerging area because there are still aspects that are absolutely new that will keep getting added along the way,
It's
right?
evolving, no? You're saying.
It's
Yeah.
evolving, so you can't
Yeah.
necessarily say, yeah, this is a thing of the past because it's not. Especially as data privacy breaches become more and more sophisticated with the use of AI and also AI driven tech like neurotechnology, let's say. There are different angles to privacy, like I mentioned before, which will get added into this conversation. And then at some point, everybody's going to want to come together and figure out, okay, how are we going to have a internationally recognized right to deal with this particular aspect of this issue, right? So that's something to think about. And then, of course, you have the artificial intelligence regulations. That also it's in an infant state because yeah, you have the EU, they've approved the AI Act,
Yeah.
extensive act, uh, but at the same time, um, we are yet to see. I mean, that also has a operational time period starting. I think it becomes fully operational 2 years from now.
Mm.
So we are yet to see what's going to happen with that. And in the meantime, other countries are going to start wanting to follow suit, and then we're going to see more regulations in that area. In the meantime, we don't know what are the issues AI is going to start posing and how countries are going to start responding. So that's also an area that will continuously keep evolving. Then you have cybersecurity regulations,
Correct.
which again, more sophistication, more new, unique, agile responses needed, right? Because earlier, if cyber threats were, let's say, at level 10, now with AI, you can bump this up to level 100 or more, right?
Correct.
It's
Yeah.
just giving more power to the people who know how to utilize it. And technology has become democratized to a great extent. It's now in the hands of everyday people. And it makes it very easy to, and I'm not going to comment too much about this, but I mean, if you think about, if you look at the incident yesterday or day before of the kid, you think it's a
Yeah.
kid that has hacked
Yeah.
the
That's what I also feel. It could be an
and
impersonation, right? It could be
it
someone
could be an
else.
impersonation, but let's assume that this is a child.
Yeah.
And if it's a child that has done this, we can see that it is in the hands of, these are not this is not a professional. Then this is somebody who's at a normal age, has the knowledge and the ability to utilize technology, and unfortunately in the wrong way.
Yeah.
So that is a kind of a sad side effect of technology going into the hands of everybody. I know
Yeah.
we generally say we would want everyone to have access to this technology, but then again, that also comes with the negative aspects
Yeah.
like
That's
this,
right.
right? Then again, you have emerging trends, a lot to do with digital transformation. Such a hacked phrase, digital. We want digital
Everybody
transformation.
wants to do that. That's the
Everyone
thing.
wants that. And you have, along with that, you have the e-commerce regulations that run alongside that. So, like for example, I'm thinking now, if I'm to give an example to people, how does digital transformation happen in terms of e-commerce? We can look at. I'm not going to go into detail on this aspect, but you can look at things like tokenization, which is related to blockchain.
Yeah.
And let's say, for example, letters of credit, which you usually use in shipping. Now, instead of having the traditional LCs, you can have digital programmable tokens on a blockchain
Yeah.
network. And that makes it so much more efficient, much more secure, and even cost effective in the long run. So that is revolutionizing, in that sense, the modern trade demands, right? And even, I mean, we see a lot of how, when it comes to coffee, even India, they're doing a lot of things where they have this agro traceability,
Yeah.
where now it is easier for farmers and for people who are involved in production to actually even secure credit for themselves, because they are able to put that which they are doing on as a record on using blockchain uh, tools, and show this as proof to banks, to investors, to show, okay, we're doing the work, so you can give us some money, right? So it's making life easier, it's making life better. And but alongside that, we need to understand that all these solutions exist, but if there are no laws in a country to adequately recognize them, if something goes wrong pertaining to something like this, then also these people don't have any form of redress, which is a problem. Now in Sri Lanka, like, I don't know how that would work out, because we don't have any proper laws to address blockchain,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
And in fact, it's like a taboo subject. It's very difficult to, bring up any conversation about this. But then again, this is something that is there. This is an emerging and evolving trend, and it's quite slow. Because many countries are a little, I think, the, being cautious when it comes to blockchain, right? Then again, you have conversations, emerging trends in relation to intellectual property and intellectual property rights, especially now, because unlike before, before I mean just a year ago, maybe, and not even a year, like a couple of months ago, we didn't have multimodal AI. Multimodal AI is where you combine data, which is numeric or text, images, videos, all of that, and you have a more comprehensive experience delivered, right? So you now, most of the AI platforms that are there, or tools are there that are there, are multimodal, right? So with that, you can see that's a lot of data, and so many data owners, right? And there are questions of compensation. There's questions of copyright in terms of the training data that is being used. Recently, Adobe Firefly, they said, okay, no, we are only training them on licensed uh, data, right?
Okay.
In contrast, if you take OpenAI, you have the CTO. She was asked, how do they train this? And she said she doesn't know. She's not comfortable to answer that because she's unaware,
Computers.
right?
Yeah.
So these are problems, and these are definite problems that need to be answered, and there are diverse opinions across the globe about whether an AI system can be an author, whether they can be recognized as, whether it can be recognized as the a patent holder, as the creator of a particular thing, right? So there are diverse opinions. And the Sri Lankan law has not taken into account this aspect yet, because our author is a human author. So we don't
Yeah.
necessarily consider that. I mean, it's not too far from the way the US and the UK interpret it, but still, they have a lot of ongoing cases on copyright and AI, uh, which means that their ability to answer these questions will be much quicker than Sri Lanka. So we have a lot of precedent that we can get from countries like that.
Yeah.
Um, and then, of course, you have the cross-border data transfer aspects, which will continue to evolve, and there'll be new aspects that emerge which have to be answered.
Yeah.
Then you have online speech and content regulations, a lot to do with deep fakes, and now this being a global election year, how do you deal with that? And
Yeah.
how do you deal with content regulation? Requires laws. Um, I'm not going to what do you call comment on the Sri Lankan Online Safety Act, because now it's gone into some an amendment phase. But well, that would have been the act that would have been considered in terms of deepfakes. But unfortunately, that act didn't address the aspects of things like generative AI, right?
Okay.
So I'm hoping that whenever these amendments do come out, that those would be discussed at least to some extent.
Some extent.
Yeah. So these, I think you can consider these aspects and just legal, ethical implications of emerging technologies like
Mhm.
biotechnology, autonomous vehicles, autonomous machines, quantum computing. Um,
And this keeps evolving, right? And it
yeah,
continues to grow, and it makes us more scary when these kind of things comes.
yeah,
Uh, people, as businesses, as we should be more aware about these things, and I mean, always have to look at a safety aspect as well while you are continuing to use these trends and use these technologies in your businesses and everything. So then I come to my next question related to that area now. AI has become, one of the key things and key buzzwords all around. People use ChatGPT and LLMs and all those models to, even to, you know, to use, they use them in their businesses and try to use those AI technologies in their, business aspects and domains. So what do you think businesses should be aware when using AI in the, using that to their, business process and operations? What what do you think aspects they should consider, as safety measures, and things they should be aware when using those technologies into their business domains and activities? Uh, yeah, after all, they might use these technologies, but they're finally serving a customer, right? A human, right? So you have to have some kind of, uh, technology or policies in place to secure your customers.
Yeah.
What are the measures you can see that, yeah, in
Okay.
that
So,
aspect?
so you want to, what you're asking is about the kind of legal measures that are already in existence.
Existence, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
If you're
So,
using AI.
okay. So I think, right. So the best way to answer that would be that at the moment, the the available regulations or guidance, uh, especially in Sri Lanka and but globally, is in their initial stages, right? We don't have a lot to look to get some sort of inspiration, even. I mean, in Sri Lanka, we don't have anything. We don't have anything. What I mean by that is, you can, we don't have anything that specifically says the AI Act, right? We don't have anything like that. But
Me.
what we do have is we have a set of laws which we can interpret creatively if we want to and see how we can make it relevant. We are going to hit some roadblocks because it's not wide enough, it's not expandable enough. That's why I think it would be really good. Something that we often say is that it would be really good if we can add in a provision to all these acts that have some connection to technology and technology acts, uh, to introduce guidelines from time to time, right? That way it will be useful for people because, otherwise something like an amendment will take a while to put
Me.
together and to pass it and make it applicable. Whereas if you have like guidelines, then you know that you can, like, it's like a soft law measure, there's a push in
Yeah.
the right direction, and then companies have something that they can look to when it comes to taking certain decisions. But if you're looking at legal measures that are in existence already, AI related, we have the EU AI Act, which just got approved last month, and there they have some uh, definitions that goes with a risk-based approach. Some AI systems are completely banned, like those
Okay.
involving cognitive, behavioral manipulation of people, vulnerable groups, social scoring, credit scoring systems, socioeconomic status scoring systems that are to do with biometric identification, categorization of people according to that, because that can be used for profiling, which uh, is anyway a general problem globally. And then you have others which are high risk, like, for example, to do with transport and health, educational exam scoring systems, safety components of products, like, for example, AI or robotic assisted surgeries, so product elements of those. CV sorting software, mm,
Okay.
okay, like ATS and similar softwares that are used for recruitment. Then you have also credit scoring, denying citizens opportunities to obtain loans, migration, asylum, and related control management systems, administration of justice, like AI solutions that are there to search for court rulings. Things like that are considered high risk. Like that, it's very risk based, where you have to disclose
Yeah.
the content that has been generated by AI. You have to show kind of when you are doing testing, you have to reveal how much of testing has been done, what are the results of that. It
Mhm.
encourages a lot of transparency. So I think, I mean, even though we don't have an AI Act, I think we can look to these kind of global regulations that are in existence, and we can take some inspiration from that. And to start, I mean, if you're talking about companies in Sri Lanka, there's no point saying, we don't have an act, therefore I don't know what we're going to do. That's not
But
how
they,
you go about it.
but they want to use AI, right?
Yes,
They
that's the
want to use
thing.
AI.
Either you give up the whole AI,
Yeah.
because everybody, that's another thing. I think lots of people, they say, I want to use AI
Hmm.
in whatever it is. I would like AI to be used. When ChatGPT came out, I think lots of companies wanted to do something with ChatGPT. So
Yeah.
they had some campaign or the other which involved something to do with it. But that's not the point. You need to look at,
Correct.
okay, if I'm using this, I'm also taking people's data. I'm accountable for that. And now
Yeah.
there's a Data Protection Act, which is essentially an act that goes hand in hand with this aspect of AI and the data
Correct.
collection that is done for it. Okay, so you can't look at these things in silos. You have to look at it
Correct.
as a you know, as an overall picture,
Yeah.
and then you have to take the necessary steps. So if a company is deciding, okay, I want to use new technologies uh, towards certain strategic moves in my company, then I would, if I was in a certain position of influence, what I would do is I would, okay, say, let's look at some of these regulations. What are they doing? And you can form an internal policy for what your company
So
does,
it's
right?
more of a CSR kind of thing, no? Corporate social responsibility kind of aspect
Yeah, I mean,
going forward,
you can
right?
put it like that, or it can just be a part of your company policy. Like, for
Policy
example,
as well.
you
Correct.
know that lots of people are creating deepfakes. Sure, deepfakes hasn't become a huge issue in Sri Lanka at present, although it is now very much a problem abroad. Sri Lanka, it hasn't picked up yet, but give it a few months closer to the elections, we'll start seeing a lot of that being used, right? But the point is, as a company, you can say that there is a ban on using the likeness of individuals to create deep fakes. If you need to use it, let's say for a campaign, for a certain corporate message, I don't know, something like that, to show you're very future forward thinking, etc., and you want certain, you want to create a deep fake of people instead of the actual person. Maybe this is a person who has passed on, who was a founder of your company, and you'd like to recreate that person as, giving a message on behalf of the company. I don't know. These are things that people do, right? You can picture something like this happening. Then in that case, you need to have a company policy. Okay, if you're using this tool, this is the tool we are going to use. We're going to use it only with the consent of such and such parties, right? Have a policy so that you, whether there's a law or not, you have covered your bases. I mean, that is all that we can do, right? At the moment, if there is no law in place, it's not to say, okay, there is no law, I can do whatever it is that I want. Because if in time a law does come into play, we will fall in trouble, right? I'm not saying that because laws are not, they don't work backwards.
Yeah.
But the point is that over the years, you have set up this pattern of working, which you're not going to be able to get out of unless you put the foot down now and decide, okay, this is what our policy is going to be. And it really depends on you. You can look at it as a step you take. So you can have your legal risk compliance teams get together, analyze existing regulations, see what we can take for ourselves from that, and create a policy. It's that simple. It's just a bit of extra work. Um, yes, and then you also have the UN AI resolution, which was also released last month. Lots of developments over actually March 2024. So the UNAI resolution was sponsored by USA, and 120 other countries had co-sponsored it.
Mm-hmm.
It was passed without a vote. It was a unanimous passing of this resolution. And really, it encourages countries, regional, international organizations, tech communities, civil societies, media, academia, research institutions to support the development of regulatory and governance approaches and frameworks for safe AI systems. So, safe AI, responsible AI, that is what that is focusing on. On the 1st of March 2024, closer to us, we have Singapore. Singapore, under their Personal Data Protection Commission, they had issued advisory guidelines on the use of personal data in AI,
Right.
recommendation and decision systems. Okay, so those are advisory guidelines. And there it talks about development, testing, monitoring, deployment, procurement, all these aspects. I mean, you can just go through that and you will see. I mean, these are things that we can take inspiration from in the absence of anything at the moment for us,
Yes.
and we can um, come up with a plan of our own.
Yeah.
Big
So I think
pro-
why the important thing is we are still learning, but we should have that that motivation and that what you call that that word you should have that eagerness to learn that learn about these laws and when you're making policies and then adopt it to your organization, because if you don't do it the consequences could be lethal in the end, right? Now
I mean,
again, yeah, continuing,
I
yeah,
mean, it's also
go on.
reputation, right? Because
Yeah, correct,
a lot of
correct.
companies, because when you set yourself in a pattern where you're doing things without thinking of the consequences and you're
Yeah,
just handling data of individuals, your customers or passengers or based on whatever it is that you're doing, without regard for their rights in the process, uh, you know, that is going to build a reputation for you along the way,
yeah,
and then that is going to be difficult for you to turn around. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, we're not just talking about individuals and individual rights, we're also talking about companies, businesses. So that is something that they need to think about in the long run, especially for
great,
people
yeah.
in Sri Lanka. Yeah.
Great. So my next question it was something related to that. Myself, I'm also business analyst, so we do system requirement gathering and we do for new system development and what organizations expect from us is now they try to develop systems with AI technology, trying to use it as a aspect to where when implementing their systems, right? Now even my role as a BA is now trying to our roles as business analyst that is also getting compromised now slowly with the use of chat. What sort of if you're adapting AI technologies as well, so what sort of things you should be aware as a BA, right? When you're gathering requirements, what are the laws and these things you have to be aware about these things, when you're talking to your clients and when they ask for such a solution, you have to give them these aspects. It needs to be considered when you're implementing a solution. Do you have any some advice to give us, any BAs, some overview and support them on their journey on when handling these kind of clients and requirements? What sort of aspects they have to be aware when doing their elicitation uh, processes with their clients?
I mean, I think the first thing that you will have to do is you have to create like a culture of transparency. Create a culture of transparency in the sense that you need to know what, just like you need to know what your client wants and what you want of your client. Another aspect that you need to add to that and be transparent about is what you're going to be doing with the data that you're collecting. Right. So having that level of transparency and good faith, if you will, if you put it that way, even,
Yeah,
is much more important now than ever before. Now, because the laws are becoming complicated and it's kind of overlapping as well. Now, because if you take AI and data protection, and now this online safety aspect,
yeah,
all of these are basically overlapping each other.
yes,
So, in light of that, ensuring there's transparency is very important. At the same time, and I think you something that I can't avoid is this idea of privacy is like a thread that runs through this conversation. It's like no matter what I try to do, I can't like be away from it. In that sense, I would think that it's so important for uh, companies to companies or employees, if you're working on a project or whatever with clients, one thing that you need to do is you need to ensure that you encourage privacy by design. It needs to be a cultural thing. It needs to
Yeah.
be
Correct.
uh, and I think that when you are able to create that, it reflects in the work that you do, because you naturally, because it is a part of that culture, you naturally act according to that, and that shows. And therefore the parties that you interact with will be more than willing to cooperate with you when they are able to see that you value their rights, their data in the process. So I mean, there is no easy way to go about it, because I think it is a very tedious process for sure,
Mhm.
because this requires you to now rethink all your processes, and it requires you to kind of keep testing and seeing what is changing with new tech that gets added. Like I said, every day something new comes out there. And it's so
Mhm.
important that you're aware about it also. And I think that's another thing. It's not just about this creating privacy by design, also, and also has a very big element of creating awareness and continuous training, right? Because now, let's say, for example, you're working in a bank or a financial company, and let's say that you have a biometric system. Let's, okay, not scratch that. We'll talk about facial recognition systems. Okay, so you have that. I mean, I think you will guess now what I'm going to say is the use of deepfakes.
Yeah.
Okay, there are deepfakes now that can help mimic your eye movement. There's so much that can be personalized. um, this, that's another buzzword, personalization, right? And that has actually become the bane of our existence also now, I think, this whole
Yeah.
personalization aspect, because now it has come so close that it's easy to even meddle around with something like facial recognition systems. Additionally, there are facial recognition systems that can't recognize certain types of people, people of certain
Okay.
complexion.
Okay.
Okay, in that sense, it's inherently biased. There is a case of, I mean, that's racial bias, ethnicity bias. Okay, and we may not experience that a lot in Sri Lanka, but these are experienced a lot in companies abroad. Okay, because there is a larger group of diverse people, if you put it that way,
Yeah.
that interact with companies in countries like that. And so facial recognition systems, very problematic. So you need to, when you're designing, and that has nothing to do exactly with privacy. That's a different
Mm.
area, a different conversation, a different aspect altogether. So
Yeah.
then, within your organization's policy, you need to be able to preempt, okay, these are the things that are going to happen if we are going to use such and such a system. And you need to have thought of and come up with proactive measures to deal with those situations. Okay, and that is not only to do with your data, because ultimately, at the end of the day, you are answerable to the whatever it is that you are processing,
Yeah.
right? And to come up to that point, you need to be aware that there are problems like this in the world, because
Yeah.
this is the other thing, right? I think when you're living in Sri Lanka, you see very little unless you're willing to open your eyes and your ears and kind of understand the gamut of problems that are being faced by people around the world. It's
Yeah.
also the reason why it's very easy to, I feel, infiltrate systems in this country, because most of the time we are unaware. So whenever something happens, we're taken by surprise. We're like, oh, does that actually happen?
Yeah.
So I think it comes back to the fact that
And we
companies,
something I also see is when until something happens to you, you don't care
yeah,
about it. Right? You it
correct.
should have
Yes,
actually happened to you. That's the
yes.
thing.
That's also. I think it's like it's a very cultural thing.
Yeah.
But and because I mean, if you think about it, I mean, no offense to anybody, but we have this tendency of, if a loved one of somebody else passes away, people tend to pass opinions and say, you need to be stronger, you need to get through this, you need to
Correct,
make
correct.
up your mind. But when the loved one is yours and somebody is saying that to you, then you feel what it means to, go through that. But it's a very cultural thing. But at the same time, we shouldn't let these little, characteristics of a society bring us down. We need to identify, okay, this is what usually happens, and we need to become more aware and take steps towards addressing that. I mean, that is nothing to do with technology. It's
Hmm.
to do with, as a society, how we respond to issues. And that's something we certainly need to think about.
Yeah, uh, very true. And then my next question comes related to that. Now, with this technology trends and the normal human life, that we are doing this balancing act, right? Doing this balancing act, trying to manage both sides and move forward, because that's the way now. You can't go back, right? This is how the world is now evolving and managing, and if you don't want to be left behind. How do you see, as individuals, as professionals, anyone, as a normal human being, how can you balance this technology and all this AI trends and all this technology emergence with your normal human life? How do you do this balancing act? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So again, just going to, yeah, talk about this statistic that was spoken of in that AI dilemma talk. That was done in March of last year.
Yeah.
But it's so alarming to me because now we've come a year forward, and I'm pretty sure this is much higher now. So I'm going to say it anyway. So Tristan and Asa, they said that they quoted that 50% of AI researchers believe that there's a 10% or greater chance that humans go extinct from our inability to control AI. Okay,
Right.
that is similar to, and this is the kind of example they use to make you understand it better. This is similar to a situation where you're about to board a plane, and 50% of engineers working on that plane believe that there's a 10% chance that that plane will crash. And so you have to make a decision then whether you will actually get on board that plane. Okay, so that's thought number one. Thought number
Correct.
two is that there's an author called Zuboff, Shoshana
Yeah.
Zuboff. She wrote a book, and in this book, which is about surveillance capitalism, she says, I define surveillance capitalism as the unilateral claiming of private human experience as free raw material for translation into behavioral data.
Mm.
Okay? So, my thoughts on that is that what she has said essentially means we are nothing but mining fields for data.
Yeah.
Okay?
Cool. Mm.
So now, not to paint a bleak picture, but the fact remains that it is no longer a kind of a potential for kind of AI dominating human life. As much as we need to understand the benefits and balance it all together, it's muddled together. And I also think that it is now dominating human. Okay, and the two things that I just pointed out from Tristaneza and Zuboff is evidence of that fact. And I also want to remind you, last year, I don't know if you can remember, Elon Musk and a whole bunch of about 1,000 plus tech leaders last year, they wrote an open letter,
Yeah.
which was called Pause Giant AI Experiments, an open letter which was
Mm.
published on the website of Future of Life Institute. And that letter said to put a break on the development of massive AI projects because they were alarmed by the rate at which AI was growing and the fact that they didn't have much control over what is going on. So my thought there is we are sitting in this small country and we're reading this. These are people who have access to what is actually going on. And
Yeah.
they're not going to tell you that there's some robot out there that's going to come and invade this planet, even if
Yeah.
there is one. Right? But the fact that they wrote this letter a year ago raises alarm on the fact that this balance that we're trying to strike is really difficult, because everybody agrees that now this is a problem, is a
Yeah.
significant problem. And Asa and Tristan actually says something that is important, and it's actually a thought of mine as well, is that this 2024 is a global election year. They say that this will be the last human election. What we mean by
I
that
was
is,
going to ask you about that as well.
because
Yeah.
what we mean by that is humans will be like nominal figureheads, but the person who
Yeah.
has the highest computing power will essentially win. Okay, we're looking at 5 to 6 years from now, so much is going to change, right? And and in that sense, I would say balance is tough. Okay, and this is where I'm going to say, but it is necessary. And to do that, I think the only way to do that would be to make sure that the technology that we're developing, ultimately, we are the ones who are developing this tech. Okay, it's not like it's being created by somebody
Yeah.
who's against us. Humankind is developing this tech. So, what needs to be done is to always ensure that tech developed is human centric, and at the same time to have a human in the loop. I think that is the only way you can ensure that this dominance is managed. I don't think you can get rid of it, but you can manage it.
Yeah, but I was personally felt is whatever the technologies that comes in, whatever you are using and you're trying to be, uh, more of a technology savvy company organization, or you need to have that human interaction in the middle to balance it out. Otherwise, it could create a
Yeah,
lot of problems. Because in the end, the systems are developed and made by humans, no? So that
yeah,
interaction is required somewhere down the line, isn't it?
yeah.
That's the thing.
I agree.
Great. So again, from the point of view, let's say now there are people who don't know about these technologies and everything, and they feel like that's this mindset of being a FOMO, fear of missing out, right? This kind of a mindset. Okay, I don't know how to use this. Will I get left behind? What do you think of that aspect now? Some people don't like to move on into this new technologies and trends, whatever happens, right? They try to use the traditional business methodologies and all these traditional ones. They are, you know, what they are, they have the expertise on. They don't want to try these new things and move on, and they, because of these legal issues and everything, they don't know how to apply these legal, you know coverings to their business to do the business the right way. They don't want to adapt it. What do you think about those people, and how they can adapt and still be in that chain of business while this technology growth is happening? I mean, there could be people who will be left, I mean, a group of people who will be left out, who will be like this, no matter how the technology trends are going to increase and be, evolving. What are your thoughts about them, and how do you think they can, uh, continue, you know,
Yeah.
without, fully going fully on using these technologies and, being with the technology trends that is happening?
So I have two responses to that. The first one is that um, I do think that, yes, like you said, there are some people who are averse to jumping on the technology bandwagon, and they're ultimately, some are getting left behind, but there are some others who are managing even without. Because I mean, we
Correct.
need to kind of understand the fact that as much as technology is important, there are still significant parts of fields that require human involvement. And even what I do, even lawyers, I mean, yes, there is a lot of usage of technology. There is tech involvement when it comes to evidence. There's online dispute resolution. There is research. You have legal chatbots to assist with basic inquiries, all of that. But that doesn't take away from the role of the legal person, the lawyer. Okay, Chamindra, can you hear me?
Yeah, there's small blockage, but can hear you.
All lag,
Yes.
right? Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So what I was saying is that just as much as all these services exist, which is complemented by technology, you need lawyers who go to courts and appear on behalf of these clients, right? And similarly, even when it comes to the mental health space, people prefer to speak to a living, breathing counselor that they can form a connection with. Students look for their teachers. Yes, we have a group of students that love learning online, but there's a huge chunk of people, including myself, who loves to see my teacher and who loves to interact in class, meet my friends.
Yeah.
Okay,
Correct. Correct.
look for that physical experience of being with
Correct.
other people. We're social beings
Correct.
after all, right? So, I mean, so I don't think that necessarily that they're going to be left behind in that sense. But my second level of response to that is because you mentioned FOMO. I'm going to tell you that that is a bigger problem than the people who are not concerned about technology. And here's why. Firstly, social media. Again, technology. Social media we are talking about now is nothing like social media when it started out. Now, social media caters to you, it's personalized for you, right? And and there's a lot of advertising that's happening
Correct.
on social media. Can you hear me?
Just small blockage, Tanvi.
Hold on, give me 1 second.
Can you hear me?
Give me a second. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, can hear.
Right. Okay. So like I was saying, so social media is, there's a lot of advertising happening on it, it's a lot of personalization, but at the same time, remember, social media is made to create engagement. We've
Correct.
seen a lot to do with the fact that, so this whole interconnectedness on social media has led to a lot of issues like anxiety, interrupted sleep, lack of concentration. You're very dependent on social media to get gratification. It's very sad because
Correct. Correct.
no longer do people feel content about seeing themselves in the mirror, or a loved one. Let's say nowadays you don't find husbands and wives being happy with their respective spouse telling each other, "Okay, you look beautiful" or "You look handsome." People want the likes, right?
Correct. Correct.
If 1,000 people have liked my picture, it doesn't matter if my husband thinks I'm beautiful, I am beautiful. But if two people have liked my picture and my husband has also said that I look beautiful, none of it matters. I'm depressed for the rest of my
Yeah.
life.
Correct.
This
Correct.
is the sad state of affairs today, and this is actually technology has contributed a lot to make this possible.
Correct.
And there's a lot of unhealthy competition amongst people. You have a lot of, I mean, if you look at it, right? Unhealthy,
Recently, we have seen a lot of things in social media.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of unhealthy competition. And I will also say this, that technology via social media is feeding this culture of vanity, which also thrives on this concept of FOMO, because essentially you have a fear of missing out on acceptance and the sense of belonging that's created by people on the larger internet space,
Yeah.
right? So that's there. And I mean, if you think about fear of missing out, you see these being manifested in your day-to-day life as individuals when you have to constantly keep checking your phone every few minutes. There are some people who can't let go of their phone because they feel like something's missing.
Correct.
There are some people who feel as if their phone is vibrating, even though the phone is not in their hand. It's like they're looking for it. You have other people who have worried when they don't get a like or a comment or likes on social media. There are people who are anxious about missing something. Okay, if you don't check your device, right? I'm going to miss this next news item, it's the end of the world. Then you have other people who want to be the first to post about something,
Yeah.
right? This is all FOMO driven behavior, which technology is making you do. And you've just unfortunately fallen trapped to it.
We are becoming slaves, isn't it?
We're becoming slaves to that. And I mean, think about other aspects of FOMO, right? Speaking as a woman, this is something I've seen a lot. I mean, this interconnectedness and a lot to do with things that are there on social media. Everybody wants to jump on the Korean skincare beauty bandwagon. Okay, sometimes you may not even have the money to have it, but my sister-in-law is using it, my friend is using it, my boyfriend's ex is using it. Okay, therefore I need to use it, right? And that's very problematic behavior, but that is encouraged on social media, right?
Right.
The books you're reading, the things you're watching, the people you are speaking to. Even more difficult, I would say, is being pressured into having certain political opinions when you are too overwhelmed by what is
Yeah.
happening around you and you don't want to have an opinion. I saw this happen a lot during the Aragalia, because it felt like people were pressured into picking a side when
Yeah.
sometimes you were going through something completely different and you didn't want to pick a side. In fact, you didn't
Right.
want to have an opinion. Okay. And even now, I think that is happening with the Israel Palestine situation.
Correct.
Okay. And lots of people are being shunned for not taking a stand. So I
Yes.
think is very problematic. I will add on to this things like these are all for individuals. Okay. So this fear of missing out has a lot to do with the way you expect other people to react, and therefore you decide to take a stand because you fear you will be left behind because you didn't take a stand with the majority or the minority.
Correct.
Similarly, things like this, I would say, even affect people from the LGBTQIA community because now we have a lot of technology driven narratives
Yeah.
which push for people to come out, and they're normalizing people coming out. But the fact of the matter is it's a deeply personal choice which shouldn't be pressured to do just because everyone else in the world is
This is
doing it.
doing. Correct.
Okay, so that is it's something that I've seen on an individual level. I'm also seeing, and with no offense to anybody, but we see this, and I think you will have a cause to giggle a bit when I say this, is the fact that we've seen now that all of a sudden everybody is an expert on some aspect of technology, right? Without making an effort to educate themselves about it, be
Yeah.
aware about it, or hone their skills in this area. We have a lot of mushroom like subject domain experts popping up from everywhere saying that I am so and so. But this is very, very, again, a problem because it's actually feeding into a larger wave of misinformation, which we can't afford to have at this point in time because people need to have true, accurate information to make informed decisions. I think people are choosing to do this also because of the fear of missing out. Because this is a bit like how in the past everyone wanted to be a doctor. Now everybody wants to be somebody in technology.
Correct.
Okay, so and that is also pressured behavior, I would feel. In the same way that you have people who have been working in certain years, spend time and money and energy on specializing in something and just dropping it to do something. I mean, it's your life, it's your choices, you can do that. But you should not do things like this based on your fear of being left behind. Okay, so that is for individuals. But I'm also going to comment on companies because this is not just an individual problem.
Super.
Okay, so we see how tech giants are spending significant sums of money investing in AI startups. Amazon and Microsoft, as of week before last, have reportedly committed at least a combination of 15 billion US dollars to competing generative AI startups. According to the World Economic Forum, they usually report on stats like this. And in 2023, investors had pumped 21.9 billion combined to nearly 700 generative AI deals. an increase of more than 260% in value from the prior year, according to CNBC. So you can see that again, companies are doing this because they have a fear of missing out.
Missing
Because
out.
every
Correct.
company is now fighting to be the first to release
Yeah.
tech variant
Correct.
A, tech variant B, so on and so forth. Tech, like I told you before, is going to be power. Remember, I told you 2024 might be the last human election. It's about the person with the largest amount of community power who will win. We can see that happening. The government of Saudi Arabia has planned to create a fund of about 40 billion US dollars to invest in artificial intelligence,
Okay.
uh, according to recent reports. Right? So, Saudi Arabia, lots of oil, right? But you can see that their mind is shifting elsewhere because they know
Sales.
where
Yeah.
power lies. Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm going to end the answer to this question by just saying competition is good. Society has evolved greatly because of
Yeah.
competition. But we need to now at this point ask at what cost? Okay,
Yeah.
because new tech, like I said in the very beginning of this conversation, new tech means new obligations. And until we are ready to put something out there that is safe, we shouldn't put it out there. 2 weeks ago, OpenAI introduced Voice Engine, which is you can create using a 15-second voice clip. You can generate other similar ones, basically deep fake
Okay.
but voice. Okay, but they decided not to go public with it. They just said, okay, we're not going to put this out because we know this is an election year. There's chance of misuse. That was
Definitely.
a good decision on their part.
Yeah.
Because, okay, to end this, I will say it's because we should not be risking the health and well being of a society as a whole because of FOMO,
Correct.
right?
It's a very comprehensive answer. Thank you so much for that. And yeah, very true. And again, now with this, again, that question comes. Maybe this I might repeating the same question again. What sort of advice you can give for people who want to detach from technology? Digital detachment aspect. Myself, I try to control, something like after 9 p.m., after 10 p.m. I will not use my mobile phone or something like that. I put those small rules, self rules to myself and try to manage those things and spend sometimes in the little ones and, stop that because that you need that real connection. You can't always connect with them through technology. So what kind of, but considering the previous answer you gave, people are still that because of FOMO, people don't want to digitally detach as well. So what kind of advice you can give on that part?
Yeah, it's a tough one. And I think this is a
Yeah.
lot to do with, I think, especially, I think it's something that needs to be prioritized also by governments. They need to look at ways of including this as something that is talked about a lot in terms of your mental health. And this is really, it's related to people who are specializing in mental health are the best people to
Yeah.
answer this. I'm no expert, but something I personally try to do. And this I'm saying, and I'm guilty of being someone who's very, very attached to my devices. But something I would try to do is, and this is my advice, one is you need to try and see how you can detox from social media every now and then, like maybe at least once a month. You set yourself away from it for maybe say digital free weekends, and weekends you don't touch your social media, you keep them on mute. Or it can be 2 3 days in a month. Once you start getting adjusted to that, I think it becomes easier for you to live without it.
It comes from here, right?
It's all
Your
in your mind.
mindset.
It's all
Yeah.
in your
Yeah.
mind, so you need to train yourself to do that. And what I try to do is um, digital minimization. And I'm no expert to explain this, but this is how I understand it. What I mean by digital minimization is being intentional about how you use technology. In the sense that if there's something that is unnecessary, like an app, delete it. Okay, restrict your screen time. You have apps to put timers, and it gives a notification that you've exceeded your
Yeah.
time. Then you put it down. Same way, limit the number of devices that you use. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't do this, but there are people I know, like especially people who are within a certain ecosystem. Like they have the Apple phone, the Mac, the smartwatch, the Vision Pro, and the
Correct.
earbuds and everything, right? It's so easy, right? It's seamless. Your life feels like it just revolves around all of that you're using. But at the same time, it's completely disconnecting you from the rest of the world. So
Correct.
use only what you need and just be intentional about this. There's nothing
Hmm.
wrong with you having all these devices. If you can afford it, have it. But at the same time, you need to know what you're doing to yourself by being one with all these devices. So be intentional. Additionally,
Recently, one of the young boys passed away. Right, he got hit by a train by
oh
wearing
yeah, yes,
yeah pods and going
uh,
crossing the railway.
I think University of Peradeniya, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes. So I
This
mean,
same issue.
yeah. So I mean, because
Same
you're
concern.
you're unaware of the rest of the world.
Yeah,
All that aside, I mean, think about it. I mean, the impacts on your ears, your eyes when you're constantly on it, your skin. These
yeah.
are not things that, I mean, it's not to be thought of in isolation as just a mental health issue. This is your entire body that we're talking about.
Hmm.
And you constantly being on it means you have weird sleep patterns. You're naturally going to become a sick person over time. So you need to be intentional about what you're doing.
Hmm.
You need to detox. You need to take a walk in nature, open the window, look out, listen to the birds sing. This is what your body needs. Your body craves this. So I think listen to your body and take action accordingly is, I think, what I could say. Yeah.
Great, great, Thanos. Thank you so much. So, thank you so much for your ideas and knowledge sharing. So, just to end our conversation, what as a last note, what do you like to share with our community and with our audience? Any, I mean, you can tell, yeah. My first thought that came to my mind was, with great power comes great responsibility, right? That's what I felt.
Yes.
So, what do you like to share on that aspects from your expertise from law aspects as well as the the emerging and never ending growth of technology.
So I'm not going to really focus on the law. I will just
Yeah,
say the law is life, and ultimately, at the end of the day, you can't get away from it. But if we talk
yeah,
about technology, because that is what's creating the problems here, and eventually, law has to respond to it. Tech, to me, is like fire, right? We know that fire is going to burn us, but we can't live without it. It's essential to us. The different, I mean, if you look at fire and then you look at tech, it's a bit like how fire has also evolved. Fire initially was about sticks and you rub something together, it'll come up.
correct.
Then it became electric stoves. In a few years' time, it'll be us thinking about lighting a fire and then it'll light up based on some chip that has been fitted in our brains or something that is stuck in our arm. That is the possibility that we have. But just because we know that this is how it's evolving doesn't mean that we are going to say we don't want it. It's silly to say that. Technology is here to stay. There's no way that it's going away. So all we need to do is make sure that we have some sense of human touch in it, right? And I'm going to end it with a quote from one of my all-time favorite scientists, and I know he hasn't lived enough to see all that is happening now, but I think
Mm.
his wisdom carries on and lives on even now. It's Albert Einstein. He said,
Yeah,
"The human spirit must prevail over technology." So I know you and I are not making any uh, technological advancements here, but as people who think and try to make a difference in little ways in the places where we work, I
yeah.
think we need to encourage people to remember that human spirit, human spirit that has prevailed over the ages. And as long as we can remember that and remember that we prevail, I think we'll be fine. So, yeah, that's my thoughts.
From your quote, I just thought came to my mind how visionary Albert Einstein was to see that this could
Yeah, of course.
take over.
He hasn't lived to see what is happening now.
Yeah,
It is so relevant to our time. And
yeah,
it's something that we must remember. If we can keep that human spirit running as the golden thread through everything that we do, even into the years to come, I think we'll be okay.
Great. Thank you so much, Thanuki, for your
Um,
great insightful discussion and so much knowledge shared. And I learned a lot personally, and it's eye opener basically. It's a real eye opener for many, and I hope the audience will get some knowledge and eye opener, and think in aspects without going blindly and using technologies, and think of AI is the thing, and without blindly going using them and adopting them and implementing them in their businesses and as individuals as well when you are using it. So thank you very much. uh, Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge.
Thank you
Hope to
very
connect with you again in the future. Right?
much.
Yeah. So thank you very much, and I wish you all the very best with all your endeavors
Thank you
and
very much. Thank you
initiatives.
very much for having me. I enjoyed having this conversation.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you.